One, two, three. ABC. One, two. All right. Well, looks like we're live. Okay. At least I think we're live. If you're hearing this is a new setup. I'm out of town. So I brought a bit of the studio with me. If something seems wrong on your end, just drop something in the comments and let me know. Thank you very much. All right. Got a few social media posts going, and I'm the only one doing social media today. So give me just a second and I'll make sure that we're getting everything retweeted. But I think that we are actually good to go right now. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome in. This is weekly movie update. I hope you've had an incredible week. The review for this morning went up as old, so go ahead and take a look at that. That movie is boring as hell, but still, I mean, take a look at it. We dive into exactly what it is that makes it boring as hell, and there we go. Retweeted. We are ready to go. All right. But later at the end of this, we will talk about old. We will talk about what is going on in that movie, and we'll also talk about what is going to be coming up next over the next few weeks for 5 Minute Critic. But again, if you are not currently, please be sure to like and subscribe the channel. But let's go ahead and get started with HBO Max. Okay, so there's a lot of news coming out right now from different creatives behind movies. If you're not sure how things are working right now with HBO Max, they're doing a day and day release for a lot of movies. Now, obviously, this made a lot of sense whenever the pandemic was raging, because, yeah, I mean, like, you've got these movies coming out. You can't just not put things out. People are going to forget about movies more than they already are. So you've got lots of stuff like Space Jam came out recently. Kong versus Godzilla came out recently. All of that stuff was doing very well. But now more people are going to the theaters. Box office numbers are coming up slowly but surely. And they're still sticking with the day and day releases, and they're doing it with movies that are backed by very powerful filmmakers. Like, you probably remember how last year Christopher Nolan was throwing a fit. Honestly, I think rightly so, because the movie had to come out, Tenet had to come out in the theater. That was the way that he designed the movie to be seen. And if people didn't want to go, then they obviously didn't have to go. But it came out, did better than I think anyone was expecting it to. And it's a pretty good movie. Honestly, I'm very happy that theaters were in the conversation for as long as they were. But right now, especially with, okay, if you want to go see a movie, you're going to be fine. And Dune and The Matrix 4, these are massive movies. A lot of money has been put behind these, and it's quite obvious that these are going to be movies that were meant to be seen in the theater. And that's not just something of someone who likes going to see movies. Like, there is something to be said about normalizing the idea of just watching your movies at home. That's not how this stuff was meant to be done. There are tons of people out there who I'm sure absolutely are obsessed with sports, and there's no way that you would be okay just having to stay at home instead of being able to go to the stadium. I went and saw a Yankee game a few days ago. I had never seen a professional baseball game played like that in person. It was absolutely astounding. Honestly, I fell in love with that sport in a way that there's no way that could have happened just sitting at home and watching it. So honestly, it makes total sense that directors like Denis Villeneuve for Dune and Lana Wachowski for Matrix 4 are pissed off, because the amount of work that goes into these types of movies and the love that people have of going to see movies like this in the theater is huge. And I honestly think that Warner Brothers is making tons of, we'll get into more like streaming and other metrics that are not doing very well for massive studios right now. But this metric is something that I think they are driving themselves towards the edge of a cliff. Okay. Dune and The Matrix are going to be the two largest movies that are coming out this year. Keeping a day and day release is a shit idea. It's shitting on the filmmakers. It's shitting on the audience. There is nothing wrong with building up a little bit of hype by having it be in the theater for 2 weeks and then putting it on HBO Max. It's going to affect the box office, which the box office is just people. There's no need to be condescending about movies not making money at the box office. And I honestly think it's a good thing that Scarlett Johansson went ahead and put power of attorney to Disney's throat and made them pay her, because honestly, it's her right. And I get that maybe we are dealing with a century old business model that does not make sense. But honestly, this is, if stuff like this continues, then the animosity that's being built up from creatives because of this day and day release thing with Warner Brothers, I think is going to end up driving some type of a writer's strike that we had in like the late 2000s, before 2010. And honestly, if that ends up happening, they have nobody to blame but themselves. And I get it. I totally get the motivation to have stuff like this happening. Netflix thrived throughout the pandemic. They have had a business model. They had a business model that was ahead of Blockbuster. It's not that Blockbuster didn't catch up. Blockbuster did not evolve. Okay. And Warner Brothers, Universal, Disney, Peacock, I guess, NBC, they didn't evolve either. They've been playing catch up with Netflix for years. And they did it because it was obvious. After like 5 years, it became obvious that there was no way that they were going to beat them at that. And look, okay, well, actually, this is the perfect way to segue into the next subject, how Hollywood right now is totally blind to their own poison. It's absolutely ridiculous. I had a YouTube video a few weeks ago titled, It's Your Fault That Movies Suck. And pretty much the idea, the idea behind that is that movies have a total lack of influence with the audience right now. And honestly, it's the studio's fault. I honestly believe it is not the audience's fault. Look, people like, and this is, we'll get into what Matt Damon and Johnny Depp said because they hit it totally on the nose over this past month. And Hollywood pretty much told them to fuck off. And it was totally disrespectful the way that they covered that. But look, okay, movies don't carry the level of influence anymore. TV, HBO, honestly, HBO helped with this in terms of TV shows. They carry influence in television. Long form television right now carries a level of complexity that movies never could. Like, you are able to get 7 seasons into a TV show, giving you the complexity with something like The Sopranos, something like The Wire, which I did start. Thank you, everyone on Twitter that told me that I should start it. It's incredible the amount of evolution places like HBO has done in terms of putting money behind creating complex stories. And that was not something that was happening between 1900, whenever we were getting sitcoms, whenever we were getting network television. People can now engage at an adult level with incredible stories for a very, very long amount of time. That's incredible. And thank you, HBOMax, for showing that people actually have that level of attention span. We need stuff like that. But movies have done that for years. Movies like Apollo 13, Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, Schindler's List, No Country for Old Men, The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, dealing with really tough subjects, either dealing with tough subjects or telling stories that are meant for adults. Telling stories, and by that I mean that engage people, engage grown-ups in a way that is not just fluff, okay? And right now, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll start with, okay, first of all, what Matt Damon said this week that like totally put the finger right on the pulse of, I think, why movies don't matter so much right now. And by that, again, I mean that they don't carry the level of influence with a large audience. Okay, Matt Damon said there was an interview with the Times, an exclusive interview, where he said that we don't have movies for adults anymore, and that is a shame, and that there is not any way that anybody can blame anyone but the people putting out and creating the movies for not giving people the content that they've wanted for years. Not that they've wanted for years, that for years they had. We don't have adults. We don't have movies for adults anymore. That is what, go read the article. That is what he's talking about. Okay. And then what, but what did the Times actually say in the headline of that article? They said that Matt Damon is upset because there's not a place for leading men anymore. And look, he said one thing that kind of said that when he was going up, there were movies that he starred in that were for adults. And look, I'm fine with clickbait. Clickbait is perfectly fine. But Matt Damon made a beautiful point that addresses so many reasons of why people are disengaging with film, with movies at multiple levels. And it's, I think, again, clickbait is fine, but shameful for a huge outlet to turn around someone making incredible points like that. And what do you say? You say that he himself is mad that he can't star in movies anymore. Not only did he not say that, he made a point, a really important point. And guess what? People that cover things in Hollywood don't give 2 craps about that. The other one is Johnny Depp. And look, I get the motivation behind this one more. Johnny Depp right now, because of all the court cases, is easy to dislike. I'm not commenting on that at all. But Johnny Depp did say, because they asked him, how do you feel about the way that your career is going right now? And he said that he is not very worried because his salary is paid by fans. They're paid by people who watch movies and people who think that what he does is worth watching. And then he went on to say that movie studios are employed by the very people that pay the tickets to go and see the movies, and that they have forgotten that. That is literally the quote that they based the article on. But the headline and the first 3 paragraphs were I don't. It was pretty much leading man cries that he's not popular anymore, but his fans still like him. The entire article was predicating that one quote, saying movies and movie studios don't care about the audience anymore, and they took that and they said Johnny Depp is upset that he's not famous anymore, but hey, there are fans that still like him. Like, come on. And that was Hollywood Reporter, that was Esquire, that was IndieWire. And look, if your job is to cover this industry and you're going to talk to some of the biggest people that work inside of the industry and have been there for decades, and you're going to take away from what they're saying that, oh my goodness, these people are just whining because they don't get what they want. They're talking about an industry where no one pays attention anymore. And look, all I'm saying from a few weeks ago, you can go back and look at the other weekly movie updates. I think there is a level of condescension and animosity that Hollywood has towards the idea of people not liking them anymore. And they're pointing the middle finger at them and they're telling them to screw off. And I think that people feel that. Like, okay, I think what's really going on, because in that last video, I said that what I'm wanting to look into, and kind of with these weekly updates, what I'm wanting to look into more and more is, why is it that movies don't carry the level of influence that they used to? Of course, I think TV is part of it. I think we are in a golden age of TV, and that's incredible. I hope that does not decrease at all. But movies have lost. There's no way that movies have to lose the influence that they have over an audience. After all, if you're going to sit on the couch and watch 6 hours of something like The White Lotus, which is incredible, you can sit down and watch a 2.5-hour movie that's incredible, and there's no reason that it doesn't have to be nominated for an Oscar and win awards, and people can celebrate the fact that Hollywood makes movies for all ages, including adults. But I think what happened is late 2000s, like 2008, 9, 10, they had incredible success with superhero movies. And again, I've talked recently on here about how I've been very down on superhero movies for a long time and that that's unfair. There's no reason to be down on superhero movies. Superhero movies, they did find out, was a cash cow, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, action movies throughout the 80s were the cash cow. Cowboy movies were the cash cow for like 2.5 decades. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there are trends that come by, and it's Hollywood's job to go with those trends. But it's also their job to give a diverse level of content, of movies and of stories for people to watch. And the thing is, they had their cash cow at the time, which again, perfectly fine. But then it's not that Netflix killed things. It's that Netflix came around and gave people a product that they wanted. And Hollywood for years shit on that. They were so condescending. I'm serious. Look up articles. Like, go to Google and type in Spielberg streaming. Like, type in almost every mainstream director and type in Netflix. Go back and find articles from like 2012, 13, 14, 15. People were talking about how Spielberg was saying he was trying to get it banned so that movies that were streaming were classified as TV movies. And yeah, now he's signed a deal with Netflix to make movies because, yeah, that's where the money is. And I mean, like, look, you have to do that. But it's not fair to say that Netflix killed things. What happened is that the film industry and the massive studios weren't willing to evolve. They didn't want to see what was actually going on. And instead, what they did, they just put their hands up. They said, okay, people are not caring so much anymore. So they stuck with the cash cow. They stuck with the cash cow and they didn't want to evolve. And you know what? The part of the glitz and the glamour that comes with movies, and I think the more that I look into this, the more I do think that the Oscars are important, because it is the time that everyone gathers around the fire, talks about the movies that are important. We had years where things, again, like Apollo 13, Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, Schindler's List, No Country for Old Men, incredible movies that tons of people were watching, and they stopped. They had to stop doing that, because you can't, if you're going to focus all of your campaigning and your energy on superhero movies, and if you're going to put that into turbo drive because you're threatened by streaming, but you don't want to admit that you have to evolve and get into the streaming game, then yeah, you know what? You're not putting so much attention, so much power into a diverse range of movies for all ages. And by that, I mean for adults. And no, so they didn't stick with it. They did not stick with it. And instead, what they've given us, especially over the last 6 years, and look up the Moonlight Review because I talk about this more, what they've been giving us is very boring, niche movies that are not incredibly well-told stories, but they're preaching. And look, I don't care about I don't think people really care about politics at the Oscars at all. I think what's annoying is giving movies two things that are preaching. And look, I'm not saying that look, if you agree with the message of some of the movies that win Best Picture, that's perfectly fine. What I have a problem with is any message that's being put across anything at the Oscars. That is boring as hell. No one is watching things to be preached at. And you can't say that that's not what's going on. Look, things have messages, things have themes. every movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you could say, is preaching at you. But it's not preaching at you. There's a difference between something having a powerful theme and something preaching. Something with a powerful theme is an incredible movie, and movies today don't have that anymore. They now have they unsubtly give you a message very much in your face, which kills all of the nuance that carried, I think, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood movies. And they have lost that. They've lost that, and they've gone to they've gone to movies that are just preaching, and that's just so boring. So of course people are leaving. Again, just it was the Matt Damon and the Johnny Depp article that really frustrated me, because if someone's really going to tell you what's wrong and you're just going to turn that around and blame them, it's the same thing as putting a bunch of preachy movies in at the Oscars and turning around and telling people that, oh, you don't like the Oscars because you don't agree with what the Oscars are saying. It's like, the point of the Oscars are to entertain you. They're not to make people agree with them. That's so boring. But okay, a little bit of good news. That was a bit of a rant. A little bit of good news. So Barbara Broccoli, who is one of the main producers behind James Bond, says that James Bond spinoff TV show is not going to be happening at Amazon. I think this is really exciting. In the article, they go on to say that we make films. We make films for the cinema. That is what we do. I think that we are going to need more people to come out with this type of stance and say, we are making things meant for the big screen. God bless people like Scorsese, who have said that for years, but also, like, if you're going to get $200 million from Apple, then like go with Apple. But I think this is awesome. I think I was a little bit worried whenever Amazon was taking over James Bond, because what's Amazon going to do? Amazon bought all of MGM. So it's like, okay, are they going to take this in a way? Are they going to gut James Bond and throw them all over Amazon as 17 TV shows, Star Wars? Or are they going to keep the integrity of this and really try and give more integrity to this franchise, because God knows that it needs some. And I think this is a good step in the right direction. I'm excited for No Time to Die. I really hope that they can fast track some more James Bond movies with top level actors and talent. I think that'd be awesome. Okay. And then this was interesting. I talk about Joker a good bit, on social media. People hate this movie. Like, you can say that there's a movie that people, if you bring up a movie that people don't like if I said that I absolutely loved Old and people are like, geez, really? You like that movie? It's kind of like there's a technical bar that you have to reach, that if a movie doesn't reach and then you say that you like it, it's kind of like, wow, okay, whatever. And I think this does fit in to the preaching thing. And that right now, if you want to be in love with the Oscars, and I get, especially if you're really young, you really love what the Oscars have to give because it has the glitz and glamour. I think that people really have something against Joker. Maybe it'd be better to just say, okay, the reason that I really love Joker is partly because it was able to reach such a gigantic audience. I think it found the middle ground of talking about something really depressing, really sad, something that speaks to our society. And it was able to talk about it in a way that engaged people enough to make it the highest earning rated R movie of all time. That is a huge record. And look, it's not all about money, but look, talk about box office. You are talking about people. People can't give that much money to a movie unless they go back again and again and again, which means that they did. Which, if you're getting that kind of money, that means that people connected with it. And you got to ask why. And if you don't, like, I don't know what you're trying to do. I guess you love your opinion so much that you just think that carries the weight of whatever you think about whether people should like it or not. But people loved Joker. And when they go back that amount of times, you can't just act like it's nothing. That's part of the reason why I said I think that I've been too down on superhero movies. But I think that people hate the movie because right now I think we're in a weird spell where the majority of people think that if something's in a movie, then it is saying it's a good thing. If there's something in a movie, then it means that you are encouraging people to behave the way that's in the movie, which I don't think makes any sense. I mean, the reason I think is because the people that argue about Joker being pure trash are usually people that love the movies that win Best Picture, regardless of whether or not people watch them. And I think it has something to say. And I think it's an anti-hero movie. And if we have tons of loud people right now that think that if something's in a movie, then you're supporting it, you think it's a good thing, then there's no way that you can like an anti-hero movie because you're supposed to see where a terrible person is coming from. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable because you're watching a movie about a terrible person. And I think a lot of the times, and sure, there are people that just don't like Joker, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people loathe Joker. Like you can tell, especially online. Mention Joker. Go on Facebook, go on Twitter, say something really positive about Joker. People think that there is something deeply wrong with you. And I don't want to say what that means because obviously you can't psychoanalyze 5,000 people. But I think there's something going on about thinking that if it's in a movie, then it's something that you support. But Joker's about a terrible person. Joker is about a disgusting person. And by making you sympathize with an antihero, and Deadpool's not an antihero, making you sympathize with a real antihero makes you realize that you could actually be as terrible as the person on screen. And like that sticks with you for a long time, especially if it's done well, because like you feel uncomfortable with that. That scene, and sure, there's a lot of stuff in it that is very derivative, but if you get a scene as good as the late night talk show scene between Robert De Niro and Joaquin Phoenix, there's no way that I think you can credibly discount that as being a bad movie. And then the fact that it reached so many people time and time and time and time again, I think it's condescending to quickly discount Joker. And I know that there are people that just don't like it, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that it's something that I think people need to pay more attention to that movie. And I think that movie's going to stick around for a while. But it is really fun. I think that's the first movie that came out that most people not most people, loudmouthed people really hated. Like it almost felt like whenever Martin Scorsese came out with, what was it called? Last Temptation of Christ, and people were boycotting it, or Stanley Kubrick came out with Clockwork Orange and people were giving death threats about it. I don't know. I think that movie's going to go down as a really, really good one. And I feel a little bad for the people that quickly dismiss it because I think they're missing out on something. And I think we need to really encourage movies about antiheroes to be made because they put up an ugly mirror to people. And to just say you don't like it is silly. I think it's silly. So, okay, talked about Old, which is currently the review. Okay, to go more into that, I think that it's the first movie from M. Night Shyamalan that's full-on boring. Like Last Airbender and After Earth and The Happening especially. Those are so bad. Those are terrible movies, but they're fun. They're so fun to watch. Like the part wherever Mark Wahlberg is talking to the old woman and she's saying, "You're going to kill me, aren't you? You're going to murder me in my sleep." And Mark Wahlberg just has this look on his face, like maybe his daughter, wrote on the wall or something with crayon. He goes, "Oh no, absolutely." It's so funny. But Old is the first movie that he's made that's so boring. And that's kind of sad. I think he needs to drop the twists too. The twists are not going well. Oh, got a comment in. Daniel Cardenas. How's it going, Danny? Do you think they'll make a Joker sequel? They are making a Joker sequel. Of course, they know that's been announced. The director's coming back. I'm like 80% sure that Joaquin Phoenix confirmed that he's coming back too. And I also totally get it. If there's going to be a sequel about something, you can be condescending about that and you can say, "Oh man, I hope they don't mess it up." And I really hope they don't mess it up. But also, that's the thing. If you make a movie about an anti-hero that connects with people, an R-rated movie that connects with people on the level that movie did, people went back again and again and again. You touched on something that is connecting with people all over the place. And I think it was because it touched on a character and themes that are not touched on, especially not in blockbuster filmmaking. So I am encouraged about the idea of a Joker sequel because if they're going to push the envelope a little bit more, if it's a success, awesome. Then maybe it can show us more types of movies that people want to watch, more rated R movies that people want to watch because it's so cool when a rated R movie does that well. And like that could push getting more adult movies. If we can be like, wow, we really can make rated R movies, then like maybe that'll be what brings people back to the theater. But also if it fails, then I think it'll give just more context as to maybe there was something. It'll just be a good, I guess, what do you call that? Trial and error. It'll just be good trial and error to see how we could get people to go and watch rated R movies because they're just so much more fun. They're just so much more fun, especially if you're wanting a little bit, if you want a movie to stay with you longer than, a weekend. But Old is boring. I don't know what I'm going to review next week. I'm watching Val right now, which, oof, that thing is so sad. That movie is but great. That's on Amazon Prime. Maybe I'll talk about that. definitely watch it. Again, I'm halfway through, but it's already so clearly worth a watch. But I'll need to think about that one for sure for a little bit to kind of see what I think about it. Because even halfway in, like it's so there's something about actors. Like if you sit down with them for like if you, any actor really, anyone that's good at acting, they they're so open that they make you feel a little bit insecure about yourself because they're just so willing to go places that people just don't. Hey, you're working a job. Why would you act the way that Val Kilmer acts? Just look at the trailer of that movie. But there's something really the vulnerability and I guess the inevitable sadness that comes with having to be someone that you're not all the time. The movie Val, at least what I've seen so far, it never says that, but it shows that so well. And Val Kilmer, I totally underestimated him, and I've got to go way back through movies of his that I hadn't even heard of because he's an incredible actor. The movie shows that he's an incredible actor. Either that or, funnily enough, talking about superhero movies, or I watch Suicide Squad. I really want to see that. That looks very good. But okay, that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. And please be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter and Facebook for future updates on reviews and movie news.